Hello. The topic of this lecture is 3D printing. It's introductory lecture, so I'm explaining quite basic principles here. So the learning outcomes are, as you can see here on this slide. First, we introduce here basic knowledge about 3D printing and what is the main principle of this, how it works. As we all know, in manufacturing and in production engineering, we need accurate parts from digital models. Of course, it's not only in manufacturing, because in art and in medicine and in several areas there might be also similar needs. But anyway, generally nowadays we are designing things in computers. So we're using some kind of software-based systems to generate accurate models. And using these digital models in computers, we have to, or we need to produce the physical parts. Usually the geometry of products nowadays is quite complicated, and it is getting more and more complicated each year. However, the production process should be as simple as possible, because humans are producing it, and if it's simple, then it's easier to teach the operators of the machines. And it's better if it's simple, because there is a smaller chance that we can make some new mistakes or spoil something in our production. And it would be nice if parts in production can be totally different. So if parts are all the same, we are producing many parts, it's of course nice as well. But in many cases we would like to have such kind of capability that all the parts that we are producing are a little bit different. For example, it could be that the parts have some kind of logos, IDs, text on the surface visible to identify the parts. Or it could be the differences can be much more great, or the geometry, the full geometry can be totally different. So there are many technologies available already on the market, but they all have some kind of limitations. So nothing is perfect. However, the ideal manufacturing process would be fully automatic and very simple for the user, and as cheap as possible, fulfilling the requirements, different requirements, like technical requirements and maybe something else. So as you can see from this picture, real parts can be very complicated. So what is 3D printing then? We all have heard about 3D printing, right? 3D printing is automated process of building physical, three-dimensional objects, which means that they can have any shape, and the geometry is coming from digital data, from computer systems. So the process of 3D printing is layer-wise, which means that the parts are built layer by layer. And we are building the parts using this technology by adding material, not removing it like in milling and turning operations, for instance. So it's also important that the building is fully automatic, which means that even if the process can take hours and hours, then the operator doesn't have to do anything there. It's automatic. The machine is building the parts, and when it's ready, operator can do some other or next tasks. And quite important aspect is also that no special tools and fixtures are needed for production. It means that we're using one machine, and with this one machine, without any special tools, we can build totally different parts, maybe hundreds of parts during one printing session. So in this operation, complicated 3D geometries can be made by stacking two-dimensional layers. Layer means that it is a cross-section of the part. It has constant thickness. And using these layers, we are like placing them, stacking them together, placing the layers on top of each other. So on this slide, you can see a very simple example of 3D printing of sphere or ball-like shape. So you can see that the original geometry in CAD system is sphere. And then when we start printing it, we divide the geometry into layers with constant thickness, and we build the structure by adding material only in these areas where we need the material, and these layers are two-dimensional, which means that there will be stair steps between the layers, so there will be small inaccuracy. But now when the layer thickness is small enough, then this stair stepping effect is not that important anymore. Or it could be that it's not visible by visually inspecting the part. So, and because of these principles, the 3D printing technology is sometimes called additive layer manufacturing. First, we are adding material. Second, it's layer by layer, so additive layer manufacturing. Okay, here on this slide you can see just one example what the surface will look like after printing when we make this close-up look at or picture of this surface. Now, depending on the layer thickness, there are layers visible. If we have thicker layers, probably it takes less time to produce it, but it's visible. If we use thinner layers, it has smoother surface and more accurate, but it takes more time generally. Now, in most cases, the building or printing of part is happening like shown on this video. This is like visualizing in preparation software that is generating the programs for the printer. Here you can see that the material is deposited on top of the building platform. It's deposited by the deposition head, and it is adding material, and in this case the material is in liquid form, but it can be different depending on the technology. We will discuss it later in some other videos. So in this technology we are adding the material, and we are adding it layer by layer. First, we are placing the material only where the cross-section of the part has to be. And then we lower the platform, and then we put another layer on top of this one, and so on and so on. So with blue color here in this video, you can see support structures. Now, depending on the geometry, we might need to add these support structures that will hold the upper structures connected with the lower structures. So afterwards, we might need to remove these supports. Now, depending on the technology that we're using, sometimes it is it's complicated to generate and afterwards to remove these supports. In some cases it is very easy, and in some cases it's not even needed to use these supports. So about words describing the 3D printing technology. Usually nowadays when we are talking about 3D printing, we mean the same thing as additive manufacturing or additive layer manufacturing. This additive manufacturing is more used in scientific literature. And some years ago, another term, rapid prototyping, was more used. Right now it's not that widespread anymore. And now, depending on the authors of books or researchers, some could prefer some other words like direct digital manufacturing or free-form fabrication or something like this. So there might be different words, but they mean the same thing: 3D printing and additive manufacturing. So to sum up this overview of 3D printing, I would like to mention that 3D printing is technology that can be used for very flexible and fast production of complicated products. So this question, how fast it is, this is kind of relative. The question is how many parts we are making. 3D printing is more suitable for smaller number of parts, and in that case it is relatively fast and flexible. And in this 3D printing approach, parts are made by adding material. So we are adding material. So it is kind of not only cost effective, but also more sustainable technology, that we're using the material, only that material that we really need to be in this part. We are not removing the excess of material and wasting the material. And this technology builds models layer by layer. So it is layer-wise technology. So these are the main ideas here. Thank you for your attention.